Now to the fallout from the mistrial at Senator Menendez's corruption trial. Here is the New Jersey Democrat just minutes after he left the courthouse.
To those who were digging my political grave so that they could jump into my seat, I know who you are, and I won't forget you.
Right after the trial ended, Republican Senate Leader Mitch McConnell announced that the Ethics Committee will resume its investigation into Menendez. Senator commented on that today, as did his attorney. And Dom, he sat down with said attorney today. And Dominic, I know he felt vindicated at the end, but this isn't the end of his legal challenges.
Not anytime soon, Richard. We sat down with Raymond Brown, and he told us the jury was also on the senator's side, and he says that shows the prosecution's case was a stretch. Is a hung jury really a victory? Is it really vindication?
It is a victory when the government spends 4 years, sends an elite team of lawyers and investigators, has an 11-week trial, and a jury is hung 10-2 for acquittal. That's a victory. It's not a complete vindication. There may be more, but it is a victory for a man who has claimed from the beginning this was about friendship and not about corruption.
Some may make a strong argument, Counselor, that it is only the Supreme Court and McDonald that saved Senator Menendez.
Actually, McDonald wasn't a significant factor here. The judge charged stream of benefits, which is a theory we thought was inconsistent with McDonald. And everything we've learned about the deliberations involved the fact that jurors weren't wrestling with the nature of official acts. They wanted to know, where is the pro? If there's a quid and there's a quo, where's the pro? And we argued all along. We never denied that he took flights on Melgen's plane to see Melgen and be with his friend. And the other things that happened were things consistent with Melgen's need, the desire of Menendez to advocate for his friend, and policy positions the senator had long advocated. So at the end of the day, I don't think McDonald was key here as people think.
But, Counselor, has the Supreme Court made it easier to get away with corruption?
I don't think the Supreme Court's made it easier to get away from corruption. You have resourceful prosecutors. You've always got to have a quid pro quo. And all it's done is to make it necessary to be more specific about that quo. And I think that is not a disservice to the citizens.
Okay, there's still the ethics investigation. Let's take a look at how the senator responded in West New York, New Jersey at an event earlier today.
We have been open and transparent. We look forward to continuing to work with the committee if it's now taking back up what had started originally. And we will continue to be cooperative, and I have every faith to believe that they'll come to similar conclusions that the New Jerseyans came to on the jury.
Okay, Senator Menendez earlier today, Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell immediately upon news of the hung jury yesterday called for an ethics investigation. Do you guys have a problem here?
Well, first of all, it should be noted that there was an ethics investigation that began in 2013. Senator Menendez sent hundreds of pages of documents to the Senate Ethics Committee, and so they're in possession of ample information, which they will probably review once the criminal proceedings are all over. So McConnell isn't asking for anything new.
You handle a lot of cases, a lot of federal cases. Was the case against Senator Menendez the most difficult for you to defend?
You know, I don't compare cases because each one involves a separate human being. In this case, Senator Menendez, who I think is a remarkable public servant, his family, who we got to know, his sister, his remarkable children. And so each one is unique. Each one involves human beings and the travail they go through, especially when the full might of the federal government is visited on them. So I don't compare one to another. It was complex, it was challenging, but at the end of the day, when the government criminalizes friendship, it makes a mistake, and I think that's why it was 10-2.
Come on, Counselor.
What?
Did you really believe this friendship line was going to stick and work?
No question. Look, first of all, the jurors who've spoken have talked fulsomely about friendship. They really were friends. We didn't invent it. They were friends long before Menendez got to the Senate. Their families knew each other. They went to each other's weddings. They went to each other's wakes. The kinds of things that families and friends do for each other. These two men genuinely loved each other. And I think the photographs that were in evidence that showed them together, and the government's attempt to sort of gild the lily, I think, fell flat. They wanted to show what a wonderful place the DR was. Turns out he never took advantage of the horseback riding or the pheasant shooting. He was sitting around with his friend, singing songs, talking politics, and enjoying family life.
Counselor, I close this way. Is the chapter over legal chapter for Senator Menendez?
My answer is 10-2, and by that I mean I hope the government, when it does a review, and I do believe they'll do a serious review, takes into account the fact that using their very best people in a 4-year investigation and an 11-week trial, they couldn't produce a conviction, and indeed the jurors were hung either 11-2 or 10-2, depending on how you calculate it. And that should mean they don't have a case that can win beyond a reasonable doubt, and that's their burden. We all learn from errors in judgment. The Constitution isn't designed to protect us from evil people, because I don't think these are evil people, but from zealous people who may make mistakes. They made a mistake with this case. They should look at it and decide they should not bring this trial again.
All right, and with that, Dominic, I got questions. So, is the sense that, do they think that the feds are going to retry this? And they could drop certain charges because they think they may be overcharged in this to begin with. Do they think, hey, let Congress do the job here? Or they're just going to say, we tried 10-2, that's a huge hurdle here, we didn't even come close? What's your sense? Or their sense?
The latter of what you just said. We tried 10-2. We're not going to win a jury over circumstantial evidence. But more importantly, through this trial, Richard, and I know you're going to say I'm a little naive, I learned how good your lawyers are determines. I know why they paid millions for these guys. These guys, Mr. Brown and Abby Lowe, when they were done, I was confused as to what was going on in the courtroom. And I'm a 32-year journalist. These guys were good at raising that reasonable doubt, arguing that there wasn't an official act. When they were done.
I want to get to in a second, because for the like me, I'm more confused now what corruption is or isn't. Forget what I think it is.
We
right.
all are,
And I
Richard.
get these guys in this, but in terms of, you certainly had a senator yesterday, other than when he was looking for you. By the way, where were you when the senator was yelling on national TV, where's Dom?
I didn't know he was going to do that.
Okay, where were you? Because he was looking for you.
I was off to the side. Standing.
He basically attached his hip
caught
for
me off
2.5
guard.
months, and then the one time he's looking for it, he can't find it.
Right there.
All right, but the one thing that came across is he certainly didn't seem to be overly contrite. There was a little bit of it, but he seemed that he was going to settle some scores here. He wasn't seemingly too concerned about what's going to happen when he gets back to Washington with the Ethics Committee. He's got an election next year. Is that all a front, or does he really believe the worst behind him?
Well, jail or having your freedom. So, I mean, I'm sure the latter. One thing that the senator did not say, but it was an undercurrent. And I'm speaking from my perspective, he feels that part of this is because he was a Latino official, and he alluded to that yesterday. I think that he feels he's going to basically cruise to re-election, Democrat, an overwhelmingly Democratic state, and we'll see what the feds do.
You know, Phil, for me, I've given up. I've been so sure how Skelos and Silver, and I know they were convicted and then the conviction's overturned because how the juries were charged. I'm not trying to relitigate this whole thing, but I don't know anymore.
Well, I mean, you mentioned contrition. Where's the humility? You know, I mean, is he going to get on a jet and go to Paris with this guy again now? I mean, is it because it's okay? You know, what's the optics here? And if it looks bad, it probably is bad.
By the way, I don't think anyone's defending his judgment. At least I hope they're not. Throughout this whole process.
Right.
I mean, even fellow Democrats, Senator Harkin, who came and testified, he said he was a little uncomfortable by some of the asks that Menendez had made. But here I am. You got a lot of clients, I'm not asking you to name any of them right now. After the rulings that we saw with the two New York State lawmakers, what we saw obviously in how the Supreme Court ruled with McDonald, now what we see with Menendez, is it fair to say that for the less than shiny, brightest lights of our elected officials, that they could read the situation to say, as long as they don't got me on videotape, you know, getting a manila envelope, you know, for a vote, I'm okay because I can say it's all part of the job here.
So two things. One, the idea there was no contrition is rooted in the fact, I mean, look at the President of the United States. Our politics have changed. Our politics have changed dramatically in the last 18 months.
But he's not some rookie
No,
here.
he's not.
He
But
knows how the game's
sure, but he's sort of either be bombastic, point his finger, say this is bogus, I call you out on this, I'm tough, nonsense, fake, garbage. I mean, Who else does that? That's where our politics have turned. It's happening all across the board now. There's this sort of, a challenge to the establishment, whether it's a judge, a jury, the media, and the public seems to like it. There's something that has fundamentally changed in our politics, that even when you're accused of dating a 14-year-old girl, you have a chance of winning election to the United States Senate. There's something fundamentally changed, that when you're on trial for possible corruption and you get off on a hung jury, you're willing to point the finger at the camera and basically say, yeah, I told you so, now I'm coming for you. I mean, that's American politics now. It starts at the top. The American public is comfortable with it. I think politicians are seeing that you can do that and be successful with that. And I think you're going to see a lot more of it.
Hey, Mr. Smith goes to Washington. All right, coming up next, a Democratic divide in the state Senate in New York is heating up and could break out into a full-fledged civil war. Stay with us.